Riveting content. Empowering your life. Welcome to the Sphere. This episode is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. For more information on increasing your cash flow, becoming your own money manager, and to schedule your complimentary personal finance strategy, contact the Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463. Looking to advertise? Join the Sphere's vast demographic reach of thousands of people all over the world. Send an email today to advertise@thesphere.tv or call us at area code 832-772-7789. Elite Dental Wellness. At Elite Dental Wellness, Dr. Ashandra Batiste understands that one of the biggest obstacles is dental fear. The vision at Elite Dental Wellness is to ensure every patient is treated with respect, ultimate care, patience, and love. Call us today to make an appointment at area code 713-789-8680.
Welcome back to another installment of Injustice on the Sphere TV, where we discuss the laws of the land and how they affect you, the people. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at LegalMind. That's mine with a Y, because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Joined as always by the so wonderful Alicia Ford. How are you, Alicia?
I'm wonderful, Brennan. How are you today? Hi, welcome back, everybody. My name is Alicia Ford. I am your co-host here on Injustice on the Sphere TV. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AllieOnSphere. And I believe we have a co-host today. Tell me yes, no, maybe so.
Well, you tell me. Who do you see?
I believe his name is Damon Parrish.
Come on, cousin. That's correct.
Yeah, that's who's here.
I actually feel glad that I was elevated from guest to co-host.
Oh.
I appreciate that, Alicia. I really do.
Okay,
Thank you.
whatever.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. It's good to be home.
Yeah, okay. So, Brennan, what are we talking about today?
I just want y'all to go on a family picnic. But we are going to talk about all kinds of things today. This is one racially motivated and charged nation we are in, looking like a throwback 1964 to throwback 1864. But we're going to start on the, sad to say, what's the softer side of America right now. R. Kelly. It's sad when R. Kelly is the low threshold of ridiculousness in America. But I'm going to start off by talking about Fulton County, Georgia chairman has called for a full criminal investigation of R. Kelly, citing allegations of an alleged sex cult. Chairman John Eves is saying that he will not rest and that he is calling for a full-scale investigation of all of R. Kelly's actions. If we recall, Mr. Kelly was recently in the news with another young lady who the parents were alleging that she was being kept against her will at his estate, along with several other young women. And that particular young lady actually called in and made some notations to the news saying that she was not, in fact, being held against her will. She was there because she wanted to, and she was enjoying the Pura Vida life.
The chocolate.
Others, given R. Kelly's history, don't necessarily believe that is the truth in the case, and it's primarily because of R. Kelly's past actions dealing with young ladies who were underage. He's given questionable interviews, such as when asked, are you attracted to teenagers? He's like, well, what do you mean by teenager? Which I guess technically is a valid question be asked.
No, it's not.
Well, you can be attracted to a 19-year-old, I guess is his premise.
You have to understand the social norms here. And the social norm of teenager is not an adult. Mm-hmm. So 18 and 19 is an adult. If you are attracted to a teenager, then it's believed you're attracted to somebody under the age of 17 or 18, the age of consent, which would be gross.
Right.
Unless you were a teenager.
from today's standard, because 50 years ago, dating a 14 or 15-year-old was fine.
It was gross then, but they just did it. All right. I mean, it was still gross.
It was gross by today's standard.
Hey, listen, I can only live by the standard I'm in right now.
Fair enough.
I think if you like little kids or teenagers and you're a grown man, you're gross.
So
That
what do
is
you
it is.
guys think about this? I mean, right now as it stands, because the girl who was in this one, I guess I technically shouldn't call her girl
She's
because
a
she's a woman, is a woman, and this person had the opportunity to scream out, say, "Hey, come get me," if she wanted to,
Maybe it
or
was Stockholm.
you think that's what it is?
I mean, it could be. I mean, she's in a cult, so I mean, it's probable
So-
and plausible. I mean, if you're in a cult,
So
Stockholm
you're
syndrome
substantiating right now
is
she's in a cult.
I said if she's in a
Oh,
cult,
if she's in a okay.
Stockholm syndrome is part of being in a cult. You love the person that's abusing you. You feel an affinity and affection towards them,
Right.
And you grow to love them. So maybe at one point she loved. I mean, I don't know. Like, first of all, like, you knew what you was getting into when you started talking to R. Kelly in
There
the
you
first
go.
place.
There
So
you
I
go.
mean, like,
There you
let's
go.
not sit here and play the role like he snatched you up off the street and
Right.
just, tied you up and threw you in the back of a car. I truly don't believe that's what happened. I believe R. Kelly is a sick, perverted man, but I don't believe he is sick and perverted enough to make women join a cult.
Well,
Like, I just don't. I mean, do I believe that he may use his power and his status to take advantage of young women and make them believe? Yes.
Wouldn't that be all men of power or
All-
women
all
of
people
power?
of
Well, I
power?
mean, but even still, it to take sexual advantage of these young girls, I do believe he does that. Now, as far as sitting there, I mean, because when I think cult, I'm like, what is he doing? Were they held captive? I mean, were they brainwashed? I
Maybe
mean,
just laying it down. I mean,
I
I
just-
feel a
I
little
don't
different.
know.
I guess because I'm a guy, but I feel like women control sex. Like, if a woman doesn't want to have sex with you, she want to have sex with you. If she does, she does. I don't think R. Kelly can make a woman have sex with her short on force. We're not talking about force here. If you knowingly want to have sex with R. Kelly, you know he's going to pee on you, and you're probably young. If you do that willingly, then that's gross, but that's your choice. In this situation, I don't see anything wrong here. I mean, nobody's held by force. All they told them to do was like sit down or go sleep in my tour bus or some crap like that. I mean, if you go for it, then that's stupid on your part. But Kelly shouldn't be put in jail behind that because that's dumb. I mean, at least we should applaud him for now choosing women and not little girls, and them being above age. Does not appear to be any kind of consent issue. And I just, short on force, don't think you can force a person to have sex with you short on force. Physical force or any kind of like chemical inducement, drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff. Me just telling you to have sex with me and you saying, yeah, that's consent.
well, I mean, if you're a giant Negro, then they might say that, hey, I felt threatened, which is also something that some women who have alleged rape have said, that they felt threatened by the mere stature of the person or the possibility.
I just want to know,
that
how
were
did they
enacted.
get there? Like, because this isn't really like.
You mean
this
did they
isn't-
drive there
No,
themselves,
this
or-
isn't rape. You see
Okay.
what I'm saying? Like,
Right,
they're not
right.
alleging rape.
Right.
So, at least not right now.
Well, it's predicated on his prior history. That's
so
why. That's
so
how
I'm
we got
trying
here.
to understand,
Your
like,
history comes to haunt you.
how did they get to his house to be in a
Right.
cult
Oh.
to begin
Well,
with?
they could have
Like,
done
how
like
did
the
they
Michael
get
Jackson
there?
type of way, and the parents took them, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
oh, that Michael."
You're staying here with Kells.
Because
Right.
I can't believe, I can't, I'm going to put some of the onus on the parents because, or however depending, because girls are crazy too, and children do what they want to
I
do.
appreciate you finally.
And so,
admitting something that's truthful.
boys are crazy too.
No.
So
Let's
it's,
stick to the facts.
So I mean, I really, so even
even
thinking it through, that sometimes teenagers do what they want to do, and maybe they had no idea that this was going on until it was too late, which I hope is the case. I hope it was not, because I just want to know how they got there. That's just what I want to know.
The thing is, R. Kelly's a pervert. Like,
Well,
he's-
I mean,
he's
if
a
you're a young
weirdo.
child, you weren't growing up when we knew what he was doing. You would have been like 5.
True.
If depending on the age that he likes them, they would have been before knowing who he was.
But
So
he didn't
so
as a
even
producer-
so, it's not like you go. I mean, and even if you Google R. Kelly, I've never Googled R. Kelly in a long time. So I don't know what pops up on his search, but I'm sure it's about his music, maybe a couple links about some crazy stuff, but they going to look that over like, but it's R. Kelly. He's R&B King or whatever it is, you know? So, I mean.
Not to be confused
I guess
with Eddie
I just feel
Kane.
like if you know R. Kelly to be the R&B king and the Pied Piper of R&B, if you know that kind of stuff, then you know he's a pervert. And then you know if you're going to be with him.
Let's move on from R. Kelly. We know R. Kelly's got some shit going on in his life. He still has it. 20 years later, he's still doing what he does. Let's talk about some people that are.
He couldn't come near my daughters. I would shoot his ass.
Well, and you have that right.
That's right.
Just face consequences. But if we want to do a little bit more throwback, we're going to talk about Betty Shelby. Betty Shelby, if you guys remember, was accused of killing or murdering rather Terrence Crutcher. In that particular case, Terrence Crutcher was walking away from Betty Shelby, as other officers were there as well. Officer Shelby ended up killing Terrence Crutcher, saying that she didn't know if he was going to pull a gun, what he had going on, and she'd rather be the one shooting than the one being shot at. Fast forward, she was acquitted of all charges, and now Officer Shelby, she was fired from her job and has been hired back on as a reserve officer in a Oklahoma sheriff's position. It's disappointing to me, and this is in Rogers County, Oklahoma. It's disappointing to me. You know, we talk about the things we can do. We talk about uniting the country and moving forward, but it seems that every time someone tries to take 2 steps forward, we take 3 steps back, and we do things that ratify the mentality of America. And this whole show today is going to be about the racial tension and racial temperature of America, and this is just the tip of the iceberg as it stands today, right now. You know, when you put somebody in a position who you know shouldn't be in that position, she's already admitted, look, shoot first, ask questions later, essentially, which is not what you want your officers of the law and peace and protection to do for you. And it goes so far that you are put on trial. Now, granted, some people are going to say, well, hey, you know, you were put on trial, you were acquitted, so you should be able to live your life as if nothing ever happened because you are an innocent person, which in theory is correct. However, there are certain jobs that I believe that even though you may not be punished as a human being, you aren't qualified to hold certain positions. And I think that's the difference. Punishment versus qualification. And in this particular instance, when we have a woman who is shown that she's not emotionally and mentally qualified to handle that job, we go back and ratify her behavior and say, let me give you this other job. And that is part of the issue of the minority communities throughout America, is that you say one thing, majority, but your actions don't match the words.
Well, I think in this case they do match. She was fired. And there's a difference between a reserve deputy and an actual deputy, and a reserve cop and an actual cop. In Harris County, reserve deputies aren't paid. They're just volunteer cops. They don't actually get a job. They're not actually part of the force. They usually work not stupid stuff, I'll take it back. They work like not patrol, but so much like they volunteer to help out in rallies or parades or things like that. They don't actually do law enforcement work. I don't know how it is in Oklahoma. I'm not for sure if a reserve deputy has the same authority as an actual deputy, but if she were a reserve deputy here, she would have very limited opportunity to interact with the public in an actual law enforcement type way that she's accustomed to. But
she has the right to arrest. She has the right
to
shoot. She has the right to walk around with her gun and utilize authority as a peace officer, reserve or not. Reserve officers, the only difference between the main difference is you're paid or you're unpaid. That is really the only difference between a reserve and
if you're paid, you're
not.
Unpaid, the hours you work. Like a reserve deputy is only going to work maybe 24, maybe I don't know.
And in that 20-hour part-time shift,
right,
that's 20 hours worth of danger to the rest of society.
And I agree
20 hours worth of
with
ratification.
You, but what I'm saying is what we have here is her being acquitted, and so legally there's no reason for her actual agency to have fired her. She was acquitted. They can keep her on the force, but they fired her. So we actually have progressive steps forward. Now, Oklahoma is not a bastion of minority justice. So the fact that another smaller county brought her on as reservist, okay. But we actually are seeing steps forward where she was not rewarded by her job. She was actually punished by being fired and loss of benefits and that kind of stuff. So I think that is a step in the right direction. It is unfortunate she's on the job. It's more unfortunate that she was acquitted.
I feel like she should work as a reserve checkout person for Walmart. I think that's probably what she's most qualified to do.
Yeah, she should have her T-Close license
I hear that Walmart is in the business of doing ridiculous things, so I think that would be a match. She would never get full-time benefits with Walmart.
And at least if she were to mess up again, you have her own words and it's not really comforting.
Put her in theft prevention if you really want to just still fuck with Black America. Just put her in theft position.
She's a white woman, so we know she can fuck with Black America if she wants to. But at least we know if something were to happen in a civil suit, she would have the ability. You would have the ability to lay claim against her in her previous words and action.
Well, we're going to move on in just a second. I want to make sure we get these coins taken care of. This portion of the show is sponsored by Houston Housewives of Finance. Did you know that only 4 states in the United States offer financial education? 33%, or more than 77 million Americans, don't pay their bills on time. 39% of Americans carry credit card debt from month to month, and 39% of adults say that they don't have enough savings. Don't become one of these statistics. Let Houston Housewives of Finance advise you on increasing your cash flow and becoming your own money manager by scheduling your complimentary personal financial strategy. Contact Houston Housewives of Finance today at 1-844-700-4463 or email them at info@houstonhousewivesoffinance.com. Ask them how you can participate in a complimentary financial literacy workshop near you. Houston Housewives of Finance is the new face of the new age of financial services. Now, we're going to stay on this same frame of police as we matriculate through the racial tension of America. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals has just upheld a district court ruling that says that Americans do not have the First Amendment right to videotape the police or any public official in public. Now, I am beside myself with awe and amazement at the 8th Circuit's audacity in countervening what multiple other circuits have upheld as the right of an American citizen to publicly police the police in as much as they videotape their actions on public property. And I can't for the life of me understand how we get here. And I'm talking about there's just about every the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th circuits have all said that the right to record the police performing their duties is the right of an American citizen. Supreme Court is going to have to take this up and make a final determination, because as we all know, each circuit holds power over the states that are within their purview, up until the Supreme Court says, you know what, we're going to affirm what one of these states says, or we're going to deny what one of these circuits has said. So right now, everybody in the 8th Circuit has to be beholden to this rule. But I can't for the life of me understand how we get to the point where we protect police so much. It is to the detriment of the viability of the American civil right. I just don't understand it.
Well, welcome to America. That's all I can say to you today.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes. I think every ounce of shock that is in me has just basically, it's gone. Like,
is it now just disgust?
I don't even have disgust. It's more like, oh, okay, what next? Like, literally, I'm literally just telling people, like, if somebody enslaves me, just make sure you at least fight that. Like, that's where I am right now in America. Because right now, I mean, when you think about it, we are bringing to light the injustices because of the ability to record the police. We are bringing to light the things that people have been claiming that have been happening to years, especially minorities and people of color, because we are now able to record the police, because now we are able to record actions and events that we at one point, because of the prevalence of smartphones and such that weren't there, we are now able to do that. And unfortunately, there are people that are higher than we that are trying to make laws against us and our ability to, in essence, protect ourselves. That's what we're doing when we're recording the police. We're not sitting there recording them because we just like to record police. It's now become a necessity in making sure that it is a one means of protection, two, the ability to show that if something does happen, that you have at least footage to back you up, because we all know that nobody really believes the words of a black man or another, person of color. And so now a lot of it is, I think it's a lot of this backlash, and because of these, let me just tell you, whatever Donald Trump has done in this country, it's extremely disturbing, but I'm very happy to see it because of the sheer fact that I cannot say that I'm upset anymore. Like, we as black people and people of color knew racism still existed. We knew it was there. We felt it when the way you looked at me, the way you spoke to me, the way you denied me opportunities, the way and the condescending manners in which they carried themselves, the discriminatory and the covert ways they exclude us from certain places, spaces for access to whatever it is that we so choose to fulfill our American dream. But it's kind of like, I can't say this is any different because, at this point, all this is showing is what has been the undercurrent that people try to act was never like, oh, that lake of racism done dried up.
It's definitely not
been
different.
there.
I mean, it's definitely not different. You have
Except
the fact
for guys,
that
this ruling wasn't exactly that. Like this was a news reporter's interpretation of the ruling, and there's more to it than just that. The Eighth Circuit didn't expressly rule against filming the police. They said you don't have a right in this scenario which was presented to them. Every other circuit has said expressly there is a right, including the Fifth Circuit, which controls Texas, which is normally extremely conservative and very pro law enforcement, and they have said there actually is a right given the parameters given to them. So I think before, and I'm not at all disagreeing with what Alicia said in general about America, but before we go to this case as an example of what's wrong, we have to read the actual text of this case, the actual fact pattern.
Well, part of the facts of this one was
appear that that's what they actually
this
said
particular
here.
guy was hired on as part of a watchdog group to go and watch different police encounters and videotape these encounters, and he was arrested several times and he had been harassed several times, and part of this issue was, did he have the right to go in and film these police officers? It was clear by the Eighth Circuit that said you don't have a right in a public place to film public officials.
That's what I'm saying. Without that is this article's interpretation of it, without actually reading the order, which by the way, the Associated Press is expressly against this article. The AP is like, you've got it wrong. So for the AP, a liberal bastion, a First Amendment organization that lives on First Amendment, to say, hey, you guys have reported this wrong, that means there's something there. So if the actual media outlets are saying the way this article was written presents a false light, I'm just saying, before we jump deeper into what this article or they're implying, we should actually read the order, because apparently I
read parts of it.
There's a discrepancy between what is being presented and what it actually is. And when the Associated Press is saying you got it wrong on First Amendment rights, which allegedly limit our rights, then I think we should listen.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I read parts of it, and it seemed to me that in the scope of the limitations of what a person can do, they were limiting, the Eighth Circuit limited what a person can do in terms of with police and public officials. So I hear what you're saying, and I respect that, but I did read a portion of it. Yep. So, it is what it is. But I just want to go ahead and let Facebook Live users know, thank you for showing up and showing out and supporting us. And we want to make sure you subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Review our show on iTunes with constructive feedback, and share this Facebook Live post and the entire show as it drops each and every week with your family and friends. And make sure to donate to our mission to bring enriched and inspiring content each and every week. You can donate at www.thesphere.tv/donate. But to a point that Alicia was making earlier about racism hasn't changed in America, I agree with you. I think to a degree. I think that like humans,
Which means you
racism.
disagree with her.
Like human, if you're gonna let me finish, like humans, racism has evolved, and the cognitive presence of racism has it went from dynamic to latent, and now it's evolved into intelligent. It's intelligent racism at this point, because you can't be the same type of racist that you were back in the 1800s, because it just won't fly. You have to evolve with the evolution of both technology and with the education of those who you've been trying to suppress. As we get smarter, racism itself has to get smarter to make sure that it stays with the time, so to speak. And I think that's what's happened. Racism has not gone anywhere. It's just changed its face and become a smarter and more cognitive entity.
But does that not mean that racism itself has declined? I mean,
I didn't say it declined.
I don't think racism in numbers is the same now as what it once was.
I don't
believe
think as many racists are out there as there once were. I do think that many. Let me rephrase what I want to say. I don't think that the same type of racists exist.
I agree.
I think that there is now a smaller number of hateful racists. And hateful people with prejudice, and we have a larger number of subconscious racists out there.
I agree with you on that.
And you might say, well, what do you mean by subconscious racists? The kind of racists that who feel like, well, I have black friends, but will still tell their children, well, make sure you don't do this with this type of person, because you never know what they're gonna do, or you're a good black, or you speak well. That type of racism where it's so pervasive in who you are that you don't even know. When you argue me down about the fact of Black Lives Matter and police not you specifically, but when somebody argues you down about police being great people across the board, well, to me, that lets me know you don't really understand what it means to be someone other than you in America. And when you get mad at me for saying that, that's that other type of subconscious racism that we talk about, the type of systemic racism where you're a part of it and you don't even know that you're helping the problem.
But is that in and of itself racist? That to me sounds more like ignorance.
Well, ignorance is racism.
Well,
Ignorance is racism. Racism
can,
is ignorance with power.
Ignorance can be racism for sure, and nobody's disagreeing with that for sure. But I don't believe that everybody who is ignorant of racial inequalities is themselves racist. I think they're just ignorant of it, and that could come from a lack of exposure, a lack of education, a lack of a lot of things. But for those people, once they become exposed to it, usually they change. Usually the ones who were ignorant to it and are now exposed to it see it differently and are no longer that way.
You could make that same argument for racists who have been hateful racists,
I think
who one day find somebody to educate them and say, you know what, I got it wrong.
See, I think a racist is a person who willfully chooses to discriminate based off race, hence racist.
What do you think, Alicia?
I think that y'all are in a very heated argument about racism. And I really believe that you're trying to spend thank you very much. I feel like this is kind of like a different kind of spin on it. I mean, who are
you talking to?
Damon.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that, oh, I'm so ignorant, whatever. Like you get to claim white plight for generations. Like you get to claim that this whiteness is something that you've been burdened with, that you are not exposed to other people because I'm so white for the rest of my life. Like, no, just the way this country is changing, you are forced at this point in some places, in most cities, to interact on some level with somebody else that is not like you. And if you choose to continually possess thoughts and feelings about them without discovering more, which is generally what happens. They see black people and then they allow whatever it is that they see on TV to shape their thoughts of black culture or what's been passed down to them without taking the time to do more. So I'm not going to give you a pass just because you saw me one time and you never had to interact with me. Well, then fine, go out and interact with me. I'm not going to sit here and give people passes for not interacting with others. If I'm forced to interact with Caucasians then damn it, I would probably need to change my mindset. But you're not forced because you don't want to, or you're not forced and then you don't want to. So it's kind of like, is this truly like an ignorance? No, or is it more so that they are harboring things that they're comfortable holding on to until maybe they decide that they're confronted with it, like with these rallies. When you're confronted with the fact that all this post-racial America ain't as post-racial as you think, because I feel like so many people are affronted because they liked, or people like to say, it's gone. Racism's dead. What are y'all talking about? Y'all like to beat a dead horse. Can't you get over slavery? Oh my gosh, when's the last time you ever seen somebody? This was the last time. This is the life we're living. This is what, regardless of whether or not you choose to see it, because if you opened your eyes, you would know it's there. So it's kind of like, if we have to live it, then obviously it's there. So it's you are choosing to be blind to it. So I can't really say yay or nay to that.
All right, and Damon, I'm going to let you respond to that in just a second, but we got to make sure we get these ads and coins taken care of. So this portion of the show is sponsored by The Sphere. Are you starting your business and looking for a place to advertise? Do you have a need to reach out to thousands of people across the world to build your brand or sell your product? If so, get your product placement and advertising needs handled right here at The Sphere. We offer a wide variety of content delivery platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher. Plus, we have a vast demographic reach within the United States as well as modern countries across the globe. Our enriched content and inspiring dialogue, coupled with your strategic ad, is surely to hit the mark every time. Call us today at area code 832-772-7789 or send an email over to advertise@thesphere.tv. All right, Damon, I'm going to go ahead and let you respond to that.
Oh, thank you. What I would say to that, Alicia, is and I know we're going to segue to Charlottesville in a second, but if you look at a situation like Charlottesville, the bulk of the human rights activists, the people who were protesting against the alt-right, they were mostly white. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard for me to say that racism at the way it was in 50 years ago, 100 years ago, still exists when I look at people actively fighting against white supremacy, and the bulk of that military force, or the bulk of that force, are white people.
Historically, though?
What I'm saying is that there is a difference between a racist person and a person who's just blinded by ignorance. There's a difference between that. If you choose to allow race to be it, if you choose it, you're racist. But if you just don't know any better, I'm not going to give you a pass. I'm with you, Alicia. I'm not going to say because you weren't exposed, you can say what you want to say, do what you want to do. No, you have to wake up. I agree with you on that completely. But I also will not label you a racist.
Well, here's a couple things about what you said. First and foremost, you talked about the fact that in this particular instance in Charlottesville, that there were a lot of white people that were fighting against the alt-right, neo-Nazis, all those people. Historically, white people have always been a part of the fight against oppression of minorities. The Civil War would not have been won without white people fighting and abolitionists moving
Correct.
And helping the Underground Railroad become the Underground Railroad and doing all those things. The civil rights of 1964 would not have happened without people that looked the opposite of me pushing and fighting and doing that. So to say that this is different in Charlottesville than the history is I don't get that.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there is a difference between a person who chooses to use race as a separating factor.
That's the next thing I want to talk about.
Not exposed, but when exposed, changes.
And that's the next thing I want to talk about. To me, what I take from that, and I could be wrong in how you're relaying it, but what I take from that is you essentially extrapolate and say that on one side, hateful racism, intelligence, and ignorance are separating factors for racism. And I don't agree with that particular sentiment, because I think that most hateful racists are not educated. They're not the ones who are going out reading, who have actually thought about Darwinianism. They've not actually thought about some letters and articles written on the philosophy of humanity. They are people who are ignorant to actual facts, and they are taught certain things that are contra to actual facts and analysis. So when you talk about the ignorance, and you're saying you can give a pass to the person who's
I never said give a pass to the person.
You separate the ignorant racist from the intelligent racist. I think that there are more ignorant racists out there than there are intelligent racists out there. And the bulk of hateful racists, and I'm not even talking about the subconscious ones, the bulk of the hateful racists are not educated people. They are uneducated people walking around with fallacies. You want to talk about fallacy?
But see, so you're not. I agree with you completely. But what I'm saying is those people are ignorant and unintelligent, but they choose to be racist. No matter your intelligent level, whether you have a BS or nothing, you choose to use race as a discriminating factor. Therefore, you're a racist because you've made that choice. That has no bearing on your educational level. You've chosen to let race be it.
I mean, as much as I want a cape, I can't, because you're making so many, oh, you're ignorant, you didn't know. Like, where do you live that you've never encountered another person of color for you to at least, if you don't know, ask somebody, because you'd probably tell my black ass to ask somebody. So if you don't know, you can, as a personal responsibility, go out and figure something out differently, but you don't want to. That's the thing. So in essence, you are now telling me that these people can live in this ignorance bubble for the rest of their lives, and it's okay.
No,
it's
that's
okay.
where you guys are taking my words. That's not what I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm not saying it's okay. What I'm saying is nobody understands the plight of every man and every woman completely.
Nobody understands the plight.
But that doesn't make you a racist or a sexist or a nationalist.
You know what? Let's just be.
If you choose, all I'm saying is if you choose to let race be the discriminating factor, that makes you a racist. So if you don't know to reach out because you don't know, then how can I call you a racist?
So Damon, so let me talk to you then. I hear what you're saying.
If you don't know you're racist,
so
you're not a racist.
When you talk about the people, when you talk about the people who have actually argued, let's talk about the people who argue for the Robert E. Lee statue to be taken down, because that's what the ultimately, this whole Charlottesville thing was based on this statute of Robert E. Lee being taken down, and the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, the KKK, all those people came out to say, hey, you can't do that. You're taking away from history. Now, when you talk to some of these people that were quote-unquote spokespeople for the protest against the removal of the statute, a lot of them didn't come from the argumentative, the vocally argumentative standpoint of, white is right, black is wrong. They talked about the historical importance in saying that, from a historical perspective, this was a great figure in American history. And by removing that, you're removing part of a white American history. And it's disrespectful to white America to simply because it's something that you didn't necessarily like about this man, the importance that he played, shouldn't be disbanded from our history. So when they made that argument, they didn't do it from a racial animosity point of view, but to me, it's the just because on its face, the prima facie argument that they're making is one of intelligence and not of racial animus. The catalyst behind it is actually about race, and you can't tell me it, even if they didn't really think in their minds, if they truly believe this was a history thing, just because you believe something is right doesn't mean that the catalyst for it is not racist.
We all act like we didn't go to con law, and we know that something on his face can look fine but have a discriminatory intent. Like, we can all act like that never happened. But as he said, Robert E. Lee is just a part of this history. Well, exactly what part of history are you talking about that you're trying to preserve? Because then that goes back to the moral fabric of society. What part of this history are you then trying to preserve? The fact that there was a man that wanted to keep enslaving people, and that is a great thing, and that we should celebrate him continually? That's a moral juxtaposition that I don't agree with. So I'm not going to sit here and say, if you're wanting to say that, it's wrong to do it, why are we keeping up a statue of somebody who wanted to do something that was wrong?
I think maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. Maybe I don't know, or maybe you aren't getting me. I agree with your statements, but the problem in what you said, Brennan, one of the things earlier you said was white America. They choose to protect the history of white America. You have now made a discriminating factor based off race. Instead of saying history of America, you're saying white America. That makes you racist.
Well, then show me the non-racist.
But
show me the non-racist that you think about
finish.
That doesn't.
But
choose.
what you started your statement was that there is an intelligent, there is a overt, angry, military black versus white racist that we all know is bad, and now there's a more subconscious racism, which I agree with you exists, and not necessarily racism, but as far as discriminatory effect of all people, race, sex, national origin, whatever, religion that exists amongst all people. I agree with you. And it takes exposure to teach you differently. You and I, being men, don't always understand the plight of women. And we say and do things right now that aren't always in the benefit of women. A lot of times Alicia will speak differently. We make fun of her. We joke, ha, ha, ha. But it is the serious situation there. I don't believe we're to be sexist. You might believe us to be sexist, or maybe just me, but that might be the case, and it could be a lack of exposure. And if I don't know that what I'm saying is wrong, I think it's right, and then and it's not coming from a place of hate, like women can't do this because they're women. But like, if I don't know that that's not a norm or something to expect, and to reach out for it, how can you call me sexist?
I think that's more naivete than it is ignorance.
Naivete could be the same thing.
Different
but
things.
what I'm saying is, a racist person, to me, chooses race as a discriminatory factor. They choose it. All right. If you
you don't think that you can be a naive racist? You don't think that exists?
Racist?
Because up until the point that you,
I don't know if I'm
hold on. Up until the point that you're at, hold on.
But I was still talking though.
Okay, I'm asking you a question.
Can we not fight? And can you just let him make his point?
Up until the point that you are educated on whatever it is and that you see the light, you don't think that you are a racist at that point until somebody says, hey, I know you want to learn, so let me teach you some stuff. Hey, thank you for letting me know. But until somebody speaks up and says something, you don't think that you were an actual racist up until that point?
No. How can you? If you don't? No. Absolutely not. I am so sorry.
No. And I think so. I think what he's trying to do is split hairs that just was too fine to split anyway. But yes, because when it's kind of like, okay, I don't know that the fact that I'm discriminating against you because of your color is it makes me a racist.
That's not at all what I'm saying.
But I'm trying to put my mind around
if you are discriminating against somebody based off race, and you know it's based off race, then you are racist.
Okay, so then what happened? So then I'm trying to understand where these utopian people that you so speak of live. Where are they?
Everybody. Nobody is perfect.
No. We are not. We're not talking about biases. We're literally talking about the fact that, look, this country and you can split it whatever you want to. This country has a history of racism. It has been ingrained, it has been carried on, it has been perpetuated, and it has been passed down. Now, I'm not going to sit here and just because 40, 50, 60 years have gone by to believe that is a grain that's now gone and we're going to call it ignorance.
But who told you to do that? I certainly didn't say that.
Okay.
Damon, I'm certainly not even arguing that point. I'm not even arguing racism doesn't exist or that white privilege itself doesn't exist. I'm not even arguing that.
So you're now saying that people
what I am now saying is what I've been saying.
Action of somebody that's ignorant.
Race versus a discriminating factor.
So what are we talking about? Because we're only talking about racists.
Y'all are talking about.
Hold on, guys. Let me ask you this. Let's talk about keeping this in the context of somebody that's relevant to this particular scenario. Robert E. Lee. Okay, Robert E. Lee was touted on one side of history as being the general who protected the South. He became the supreme commander of the Southern forces in the fight in the Civil War. However, historical accounts also contend that Robert E. Lee wasn't necessarily for slavery. He actually didn't. He was against the Southern mentality of owning slaves. He didn't like it. He didn't want to fight in this war, but he chose his home over his I guess his moral or political beliefs. However, then you have I have an excerpt here of something that Robert E. Lee wrote to his wife. This is back in December 27th of 1856. It says, "In this enlightened age, there are few, I believe, that will acknowledge that slavery as an institution is a moral and political evil in any country. It is useless to expatiate on its disadvantages. I think, however, a greater evil to the white man than to the black race, and while my feelings are strongly enlisted in behalf of the latter, my sympathies are more strong for the former. The blacks are immeasurably better off here than in Africa, morally, socially, and physically. The painful discipline they are undergoing is necessary for their instruction as a race, and I hope will prepare and lead them to better things. How long their subjugation may be necessary is known and ordered by a wise, merciful providence. So in one breath, Robert E. Lee talks about how he understands that slavery is wrong. He feels for the black people. He thinks the white man is quote unquote evil, in at least to some degree, and in the same breath goes on to say that the shit that black people were going through will help them be better as a race. Is he a racist? In your opinion?
I've already answered that question. Yes, I believe he's a racist. I've never said he wasn't a racist.
I don't understand your point. So I'm just going to leave it there because I just don't understand these people that you talk about that are acting out of ignorance that discriminate against people based on race that aren't racist. Like, I just don't get how those are mutually exclusive. Like, there is a difference between, oh, I am ignorant and I treat you as a whole person a certain way, and I am ignorant and you continue in my ignorance and perpetuate, because we all know racism is based on some sort of ignorance, and I continually perpetuate that based on your race. I just don't see like how those two things are mutually exclusive when they come to race and how people of color have been subjugated in this society. I mean, maybe are there less people who truly believe that black people are lower, inferior, and less than, and should be, and are morally bankrupt? Absolutely, I agree. The times are changing, but there is still an undercurrent of racism that continues in this country that people.
I don't understand. I don't understand. So now I'm completely lost, because I've never said racism was dead. I never said it doesn't exist. I never said people aren't racist.
We're both lost.
I never say society has changed to eliminate racism. I've never said anything of that nature. So I don't understand where we're coming from on this perspective. What I have said before, and I will continue to say, and I've actually hammered it multiple times, which hasn't really, in my opinion, been challenged, is that if you knowingly use race as a discriminatory factor, you are racist.
I know, now, we agree.
But you unknowingly use
like
it, then
20, a minute, 30 seconds, 15. Let me finish. If you don't know you're using race, I'm not saying that's good or a pass. I'm not saying you shouldn't be taught or educated, but I don't know if I will not call you a racist because you haven't knowingly used race.
I don't know how you could not knowingly use race. Like, that doesn't even make sense. How could you not knowingly use race?
It's just like Brendan said. If somebody says, don't do that because black people do that, that's racist. That's racist.
So then don't do that because that person. Well, then how do you not knowingly use race to be? Because does not like you've mind blown. Mind blown.
So you give me
and
culturally aware to everything.
Give me a specific example where that happens.
Okay, so as an example, if you got on an airplane right now and you saw a nice Sikh man sit next to you, would you at some point in time think something? Now, would you act upon it? Probably not. You'd probably say that was wrong of me to think that, and so I will let it go. But you at some point in time think something. Now, what you don't know is if you saw that nice Sikh man, if you did something that to his eyes was offensive, but to you had no idea it was offensive. Maybe you moved a little bit suddenly, and he's like, I saw that, but whatever. I'm not gonna blow the plane up. Maybe you were like, maybe you position yourself a little differently. Maybe you eyeballed his backers for a quick second, like looked at him for a quick second to eyeball a little more to see if there's something there. I don't know. And then you didn't like, you know what? That's not right. I'm saying it comes in a lot of forms. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that if you do not choose to use race as a discriminating factor, I don't know if I'm going to apply you as a racist. There's something there, but to me, racism is something you choose to be. If you choose to be racist in any form, you are racist. It doesn't take a lot. If you choose it in any form, I don't need a grandiose kill all niggers to make you racist. It can be any small form. But under Brennan's original statement, in that it's subconscious and you don't know you're doing it, and so you're acting upon a bias you don't know is there, then I don't know if I won't call it racist, especially if you've been exposed to say, hey, that's racist, and you change. So then I can't call you racist. Now, if you've been exposed to say, hey, what you just did was racist. So if you're
acting on a bias, as in I see these group of black people, I don't get how you can choose.
Damon,
Okay, I'm done because I don't get it.
I kind of hear what I think I understand what you're saying, and to me, based on what you just said, I think that you are making a difference between a racist and racist acts. Is that a fair statement?
That'd be a fair statement.
Okay, and I can agree
That
that
would be a fair
someone may
statement.
not be a racist, but engages in racist activity because and that which to
because
me,
of certain biases that they hold to
prejudices
themselves.
or stereotypes that play in it. And the difference I think that you're saying is the people who play into those stereotypes with purpose versus those who don't necessarily even are unwitting to the fact that they are acting on said prejudices or stereotypes.
That would be the difference I'm making.
Because
Okay.
I
If
was
I understand you correctly, that'd be a difference I'm
because
making.
there's a whole different level of intent between those two sets of people. Then, if that's what you're saying, that these races, because if you're self-correcting in your thoughts, then are you really a
Well, quite honestly, both are dangerous.
But to me,
that's what I'm getting
But
at.
to me, you're not. But when you're saying that, that is not acting. That is not acting on racism.
So,
it's I don't
well, to
even,
me,
I
and
don't-
this is the last thing I'm
hard
going to say on this because we have to
understand
cut this
your
off.
point.
But for me, both are dangerous. The ones who are
I agree.
ignorant with hate are just as dangerous as the ones who are unwittingly playing into prejudices, and almost more so the ones who are unwitting because they're willing to fight to the bitter end that they're not that bad person, while promulgating and continuing a systemic system. So hopefully the ones who are unwitting, you can talk to them and show them, but you have to have something to compare it to because they're going to be the ones that say, no, I can't possibly be racist. So they're not going to be the ones who are actually open to the conversation of, but maybe you are, and let me give you some reasons why X, Y, and Z. And I think that both of those play a role because you've got your blatant racists are the ones. I actually love the blatant racists the most because you
I
can
do.
see it coming.
You know who
you
they
know what
are.
to do. You know how to fight it. It's those insidious ones that are walking around thinking that, well, I don't really see color. I just take you as you are, even though I know that you may struggle, but you speak well, and I think that you're a great black man because I don't really see color. They say they double talk themselves, really believing that they aren't engaging in a racist activity, ergo not being a racist. And I think being a racist is subjective as to who's the recipient and who's the giver. Because if I'm the recipient, what you say, if it's racist, I label you as a racist.
Yeah, I
What
understand
you
that.
say, it may be racist, but I'm not the racist out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the one who's actually fighting against you. I think all people should work together. But I think affirmative action is bad because what about my people who aren't getting anything?
I understand what you're saying, and maybe we're on the same page, maybe not. I understand what you're saying, and if the difference is a racist action versus a racist person is intent, then I guess that could be it. I don't know.
Well,
I've said my piece on that. I don't know.
Well,
what's
we don't have
confusing
time
about
to
it,
say
but
any
I've
more
said it.
pieces,
Yeah,
but
this could be a lifelong discussion.
and I think you made
Obviously.
Alicia quite upset today.
I'm just like, what up?
She done put on her
what
what
else
the
is
fuck
new?
face, but it is what it is
What
for
else is
today. There's a lot more we want to talk
Don't
about,
come back.
but we will we will push this to next week. And I
back
almost
next
want to have you bring you back next week so we
Come
can
back
have
next week.
part 2 of this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you today on Injustice. I'm your host, Brennan Dunn. You can reach me on Twitter at Legal Mind. That's mine with a Y because there's always a question to be asked and answered. Alicia.
And I am Alicia Ford. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AllionSphere. And Damon, where can they find you?
At Twitter, LaurierParrish.Laurier Parrish, I guess. I don't know how Twitter works. So.
Okay. Well, Damon, it's been a pleasure yet again having you and Alicia bring me joy. We will see you next week, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next time.